wanted to imagine what is our relationship to food here in the Valley, and what will our relationship to food in the Valley be in 25 years.
Is thinking of a process by which to capture those different kinds of expertise and generate a vision of a sustainable food system in the Valley.
I think what Vandana Shiva, what she has imagined as Earth democracy that must be sustained, this Earth democracy that must be sustained not on dead carbon or oil and coal, but on living carbon or soil. And so she makes that distinction and not simply focus on the badness of carbon, but distinguish between bad or dead carbon, fossilized carbon, and living carbon, soil, which is needed for all kinds of things, most importantly food.
So we started with the ancient. The Valley of the Sun here is an ancient bread basket of North America. It was one of the most important stopping places on the route from Mexico to the Pueblos up in the Four Corners region. And people would stop here because it was such a fertile place with 9 rivers running into the valley. And people, over 40,000 people living here in Pueblo, a Pueblo system that grew, vast amounts of ancient grains called amaranth, sunflower seeds, etc. There are many foods that are still growing here in the valley that are still important to the future of food, and amaranth would be one of those important foods. It is an amazing grain. It is drought tolerant. We could grow it with very little water, and it could become again, one of the staple crops of the future if we would just reintroduce it into our food systems. We want to see a future, say a future in 25 years, Dinner 2040, in which we still will have the pleasure of the company of our family at the table. We'll still have an abundance of food on the table. And we will not be living, just hand to mouth, but rather we'll be living comfortable lives, but lives that are more sustainable. We wanted to know what would be on our plates in 25 years. So we created a project called Dinner 2040. We brought together community partners in the culinary arts, indigenous communities, agriculture and organic farming, public health, policy planning, and food markets.
We did something called a design charrette. The model of the design charrette has been used in architecture and planning for decades, where you basically bring together a group of experts, local informants, working together to co-create an idea that's usually focused on a particular design issue or problem.
So we would call it faucet thinking, which is just trying to pour out as many ideas as possible, and then funnel thinking, which is trying to condense ideas. So in the faucet thinking, we try to suspend judgment. Do not judge while you're generating ideas. The second one is go for quantity. We need to have a lot of ideas to work with, so more is better. Seek the unique. Which means go outside the usual, just go, don't be afraid to propose something that's a little bit outlandish. Let go of your ego. So that means when you put up an idea, it's no longer yours, it's everybody's. And then you're encouraged to add on to someone else's idea, to work together. Now, when in funnel thinking, when you're evaluating ideas, when these will be done at different stages, accentuate the positive. The positive aspect of this idea is what it is. Do that first. And then try to consider the long-term implications of the idea. And then again, to support novelty. Don't immediately reject something because it's a new idea. So these are the basic rules. Then the next phase is a funnel activity, which is writing and visualizing the story of the meal or the dish. So what the team will need to decide on one or more dishes from your group that you would like to write a story. Then you need to write the story. It just needs to be clear how you're addressing these different topics. And then you'll prepare a meal description on an 8.5 by 11 page, combining the most prominent social and environmental details, and then on an 11 by 17 page with pertinent images to illustrate the story. You'll make a larger drawing of the whole thing. So you are all encouraged to make sketches. You're all encouraged to visualize anything. There's reporting at the end of the first session, and there's also reporting at the end of the second session. Relatively short reporting, but that's the basic process. To try to be productive as a group in generating the story of the food. So you keep going through this cycle of writing ideas on Post-it notes, placing them, and reading the Post-it notes. You go through this on these 4 different topics, and that will be the first 40 minutes. The idea here is to generate as many ideas as possible. The objective is not to have a big dialogue or a big discourse. The objective is to certainly to allow everyone in the group a voice. Once we're done with that process, we'll move right into the backcasting process. Your team will look at the ideas. You'll have 4 different flip charts with ideas on them, and you will have a discussion within your group about which of these ideas you want to make a backcast of. Backcast works as you say, in 2040, the ideal condition is this, and you say this is happening in the year 2040. This is where we want to go. The idea with backcasting is that we're trying to get from here to there.
So the humanities has a lot to offer. The conversations we're having around the world about a changing climate and about how we will live in the future.
Part of the humanities methods and sort of strengths lie in an attention to diverse histories and to storytelling and to the visual and performing arts and to questions of aesthetics and values and ethics. And I think what we're doing is bringing a lot of that intellectual work and investment into a very public, locally specific project about what food may or may not be here in Maricopa County in the future.
I think with cross-institutional collaboration, one of the things that I think we don't appreciate is that people in their own institutions are learning a lot about where they live and the communities that they work with. Oftentimes you don't get to hear people's views on that, right? You know, how they're connected to the location where their university is and or not connected or things like that. And so it was really good actually to hear what people, you know, knew based on, you know, where they were located and things like that, and really bring out people's expertise.
We can learn from what our cultural communities outside the university are doing, and the richness of their cultural stories bring back to us. And sharing a meal together is one of the best ways to experience that and to share the stories.
I think the visual of a Feast 2040 is actually a really very significant unifying principle around which we can actually talk about environmental crisis, but it also is there's enough commonality in it that communities, academia can, you know, it creates an equalizing field in the sense that we are all able to bring in expertise and bring knowledge and bring experiences, all of which, you know, hopefully will turn into and make butter out of this way that we have right now. And I also like the fact that it also engages all our senses. It's the taste, it's the smell, it's the visual, it's the tactile, but it's also the intellectual and the experiences. And I think that's what's going to be really enriching about this doing cross-culturally and cross-institutional.
We got together as interdisciplinary and groups working with community partners to think about how we would imagine those food systems for the future. We plan to serve our imagined dinner as we discuss and plan what infrastructural and policy changes will need to be put in place for us to have that dinner on our plate in the year 2040.